This is Rick Lewis with Phenom Hoop Report. In today's Coach's Corner, I have a very special guest, someone who has meant a lot to me over the years. He's gone through full circle. He attended our camps as a player in high school. He was a staff member and a scout for Phenom, and just recently got a job as assistant coach at Averett College in Virginia. I want to welcome Chris Sause. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. It's great to be on. I'm really excited for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Before we get started, I'm going to go back in our archives for a little bit and just read you something about Chris Sause, the player, in 2015. This is what we wrote about you in 2015.
All right.
It says, "You can't help but appreciate it when Chris Sause plays. He is an all-out, high-motor guy. He finished his senior season as the high school's all-time leading scorer. The rugged wing will go out and produce game in, game out. Expect a lot of D2 and D3 coaches out evaluating him." That was our evaluation of you in 2015. Now, you played high school ball at Voyager Academy for 4 years. You graduated in 2015. Then you went and played 4 years at NC Wesleyan, which is a Division III school, and you graduated in 2019. In between, you worked with us at Phenom, and you did a wonderful job, and everybody liked your hot sauce takes when you were working with us. And just recently, this past year, you were named the assistant coach at Averett College in Virginia. Talk about your high school career, and what is your scouting report on Chris Sause, the player, now that you're a coach?
I would say pretty similar to what you guys had. Honestly, I would definitely list myself as a high motor guy who's going to play hard the whole game. I like to think I had a pretty high IQ. I know driving left, you got to put that in, left to right spin move. Pick and pop guy as playing kind of the 3-4. But I would definitely say that the biggest thing is got to match energy. And I knew as a player I always had to bring a lot of energy and kind of think the game because I didn't have the physical abilities of some guys I was matching up with.
Okay. Now, when you were playing in high school, like everybody that is in your shoes, when you went to high school, when you were a freshman, you probably thought you were going to be a high major prospect.
Of course.
Absolutely, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When did it hit you that you knew exactly what level you were playing in or play at? Like, for example, when you was a freshman, like everybody else, you think you're going to be a high major player. You're going to go play in the NBA. Your sophomore year, you sort of tone it down a little bit. Then your junior year, and then you go into your senior year. Talk about the process for you as a player.
So like you said, freshman year, nobody could tell me I wasn't going to Carolina or Duke or Kentucky or one of the blue bloods. But eventually, as I started playing more and I started honestly listening to people and learning different options, going to your camps was a big thing for me to see, like, man, I just played against a guy who's going to a low major, a Campbell, a Gardner-Webb, one of these smaller schools in state. Man, that dude killed me. Like, these dudes are good. And so going to camps and stuff opened my eyes. And then I would say probably about my junior year, right during junior year, right after junior year, I had a couple low majors that were kind of talking to me. I'd been to some of their elite camps and ended up they were looking at me as like a preferred walk-on type kid. And then some D2s started looking in. And as I started visiting Division II schools, I didn't really do much with Division III until late my senior year. But as I started visiting some of these Division II schools and seeing their facilities, seeing what they have to offer, all their players practicing and stuff, I started to realize, like, man, these guys are really good players. And then it's always cool because, like, I would go on a visit. I went on a couple low major school visits, and I'd then watch them on TV. And it's like, man, these guys, this is a lot different than what I thought it was. And just kind of getting your eyes opened a little bit. And I still think most players that, like myself, are Division II, Division III guys, when you first step into open gym in one of those places, Division II, Division III, that's when your eyes really get open because you're like, first of all, you walk in, you're like, man, Division III, Division II, I think I can walk in here and just kind of be the man. Maybe we'll see. And the first couple of days, those guys that are already out there are really talented, and they're not going to let you just walk in and be the man.
Right. And I'm sure, like, people don't understand when they watch a player on TV, they don't really understand how athletic he is.
Right.
Because anytime you watch someone on TV, they don't look as good as when you play them in person.
Right. Right. Funny story about that, actually. I was in 10th grade, and my high school coach, Melvin Scott, played at University of North Carolina. So he was going up there one day to work out Harrison Barnes. And I had watched Harrison Barnes on TV a bunch of times like everyone else. And so he gave me the opportunity to go help him rebound and stuff. And at the end, I asked him if he wanted to play one-on-one. And it was probably the quickest game of one-on-one he ever played. I don't think he needed more than 3 dribbles and 3 dunks, and that was it.
Oh. How would you describe the difference between D1, D2, D3 for our listeners?
I would say D1 kids are probably – that's the complete package all around. They've got everything you need: talent, size, athleticism. And if you're missing 1 or 2 of those things, maybe you're really talented, but you're a little undersized. You might get some D2s, which the D1, D2 discrepancy is not great. I wouldn't say it's not a huge gap. And I don't think it's a huge gap from D1 to D3. Obviously, the huge gap I feel comes in when you look at the high major schools to everybody else. So I would say just Division III kids are more, maybe you're a shooting guard, but you're 6 foot. Maybe you're not a 6'4" shooting guard. Maybe you're a 6'5" power forward who's not extremely athletic, but you can still produce. I like to tell people we go after guys that we don't really have to look at all the measurables and everything. I like to go after guys that can just produce and get it done. And it's great to watch games where Division I, Division II play Division III schools, because like when I was at NC Wesleyan, we went to High Point and they knocked us off in overtime. They hit a buzzer beater to send it to overtime and then beat us. But you kind of really see the gap was pretty close at that point. And then this year we also, again, High Point, we played at Averett, and they beat us by 9 points or so. And so those guys are really good, but our guys are really good as well, I feel.
I think you hit an interesting point. I do agree with you. I think when you look at the D1s, I think there's a separation between that mid-major and above.
Mm-hmm.
There's that separation. But if you look at the schools in North Carolina, a lot of the really good D2 schools like Queens and UNC Pembroke,
right,
Catawba, Mars Hill, Leeds-McRae, those are just a few. If you played those schools against some of the lower tier D1s, right, I guarantee you those games would be very, very competitive, and a lot of the D2s would be very successful in the outcome of the game. And that's the reason why a lot of D1s at that level don't want to play Division II schools.
Right.
And the other point, too, is how many times have you seen an exhibition where you have a D2 program or even a D3 program playing a mid-major or above in exhibition, and you hear that D2 or D3 program beat that program that's much higher?
Right. Yeah, it happens more often than people think, and more often than I would think that the Division I schools want you to know about. But like I said, usually when I've been a part of exhibition games, there's been a few. This past season, we played UNCG, who is, I'd say, right on the cusp of competing with the high major schools every night. Really good team, and they kind of handed it to us. But a lot of the other exhibition games that I've been a part of since I've been at the Division III level have been right there, like within 10 or 12 points.
Well, you were very successful at Voyager. You was the all-time leading scorer there. Okay, you went to a D3 school.
Mm-hmm.
How tough was that transition going from high school to a Division III school?
It was really hard for me. It was my freshman year, I was able to find my way onto the court just because of some of the things I talked about earlier. I just always played hard, and I kind of had an understanding of positioning to be in. But I didn't go in by any means, and like I wasn't the man. I went in there and I played maybe 5 to 7, 10 minutes a game and just played really hard. But it really exposed some things to me quick, and I think it exposed things in practice before anything else.
So you mean you didn't you went from high school to a D3 and you didn't start right away and become the leading scorer right away?
I did not. I was fortunate to be on a really good team. We won the league that year, and I was just able to come in and make some contributions here and there, but I wasn't nearly strong enough. I didn't wasn't quick enough to defend all the guys I needed to defend. And in practice, that's where you really get exposed quick.
Well, how tough an adjustment was that for you? I'm sure, that young man, Chris Sause, as a freshman in high school, thinking he was going high major and going to Carolina Duke. And now here you are, you graduated. Now you're a freshman at NC Wesleyan, and you're fighting to get minutes on a D3 team.
Right. And it was difficult, but I think the biggest thing was what our coach, Coach Thompson at Wesleyan, and my upperclassmen that I had gotten to know really well, it'll humble you really quickly getting to that level and realizing, like, man, I got to compete. I got to fight for everything. And the biggest thing at Wesleyan that was always preached on that team was just the buy-in. And it's not about you. It's about us. It's about our team. And so really getting to do that. And, like, if I went in the game and I got an offensive rebound and took a charge, that was a great game for me. And so it was just doing the little things and really buying into that role. And I honestly, 4 years at Wesleyan, I don't think I was ever the star player or anything, but I was able to find a role for myself by just really playing hard and trying to do what the coaches asked.
So it was a lot more difficult than what you thought it was going in.
Definitely. And that's why I'd encourage people to go check out some different games at different levels.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Chris. Throughout this process in high school, now you're at the Division III level, when did it hit you that you said, okay, I want to become a college basketball coach?
I always tell people that I knew I wanted to start coaching when I realized I wasn't going to the NBA. 'Cause, I love basketball. It's been my life. It's been such a huge part of everything. On the court, off the court, I just live and breathe basketball. And I knew I wanted to stay around it. And it's funny, actually, I can think back to going into my senior year. Phenom Hoops was doing an open gym tour, and they came by Voyager, and we had some really good players. We had Chance Green, who went to Lynchburg, Jay Huff, who's at Virginia, and some really good players. And the Phenom article labeled me the future coach in the article. And so it's funny to go back and look at that, but I just knew playing AAU and kind of always being a leader and a captain and just really getting to think the game. I always knew I wanted to coach since I was in high school, I would say.
Talk about your experience at the Phenom camps coming through as a high school player.
The Phenom camps were great. I always loved going to them because, one, it was a camp where the 3 dribble rule, you were always going to have an opportunity to touch the ball. You were going to get to play with and against some really good competition, which I feel like those camps where you play against really good competition kind of give you a gauge for who you are as a player and how you play. And then also the feedback. I felt like most of the coaches I had at Phenom camps were very realistic and gave me real feedback, and then a little write-up on things I can improve and everything. And so I always really loved the Phenom camps coming up, and I still enjoy watching them to this day.
Well, during your college days, you also came back and interned with us. And shortly after you graduated from college, you were on our staff during the summer, and you did a lot of scouting for us, and you did a lot of articles, and you wrote about players. How did that experience prepare you to be an assistant coach?
I tell people all the time when some of our guys at Averett right now want to be coaches in the future, and they ask me, how are you able to become a coach your first year out of college? Because a lot of people don't get that opportunity. And I tell them Phenom is the reason I have a job, because, one, learning how to recruit is such an important thing in the coaching business, especially as an assistant coach. And working with Phenom, you're basically recruiting for other schools. You're trying to help other schools place players at levels and things. And then, two, learning the grind of what recruiting and these tournaments really are. As well as anybody, you'll spend some 12, 13-hour days in the gym, and it's a grind. But then also what Phenom did for me was give me the platform, as when I was working there as a scout evaluator, gave me the platform to make relationships with coaches. And someone, like I said, I wanted to be a coach. I knew I wanted to be a coach. If you were just looking at me coming out of college, I think I got 6 or 7 different job offers, and I'd say all of them were just because when I was working with Phenom, I was able to see a bunch of players. I was able to make a bunch of connections with high school coaches, AAU coaches, and I was able to make a bunch of connections with college coaches that I had gotten to know pretty well. So I'd say Phenom is, I always tell people Phenom's the reason I was able to get a job.
Thank you so much, Chris. The other thing that's important, talk about recruiting. You as a player, especially at the high school level, you played against players at every level. You played against some D1 kids that were high major, mid major, low major. You played against kids who were D2. You played against kids that were D3. Okay, so you have that experience playing against them. How important is that in the recruiting process? Because you're out there watching these camps and going to these tournaments, you have to make that decision. Okay, this kid's D1, D2, D3. How do you differentiate on which kids you can recruit?
The first thing I feel like we always have to look at is, okay, has anybody else offered him? Because obviously if a kid's got a Division I scholarship, that's probably not the kid we need to be recruiting right away. And so other than that, you can just look at things and you kind of learn throughout the years. It's always a trial and error process almost, because there might be a kid who you think is a surefire D3 kid and he's a really good player and he's a really good kid, and a D2 school likes him a lot, so they take a chance on him. And so there's, like I said, it's always, maybe it's a kid who's really athletic and really productive and he just needs 10 to 15 pounds of muscle before you feel like he's really ready to go. Or maybe it's a kid who can shoot the ball as well as anybody and handle it and pass it, but he's not quick enough to really keep a lot of people in front of him. So D3 kids usually coming out of high school, they might be missing one or two things, but they're still productive, really good players. You can look at some guys at this level now that average 20 points a game in high school and 10 rebounds, and were always really good players, but maybe they're just a little undersized or a little not athletic enough, and little things like that. I'd say it's just kind of a feel thing that you get to pick up the longer you're around it.
There's a lot of negative perceptions about D3. Okay, what's your biggest challenge when you're recruiting someone about Division III schools? What's the biggest obstacle or challenge you face?
I'd say the first thing you have to do when recruiting Division III is break the stigma, because like you said, there's a lot of negative perceptions out there and a lot of people who kind of do look down on our level. But usually if I can get a kid on campus, a kid to come to a practice, a kid to watch a game, they can pretty quickly see like, oh, these guys are pretty good. And it really helps if you have a kid maybe out of their league that went to a Division III school, or on their team even that went to one, and they thought the kid was really, really good, and the kid's definitely a college basketball player, and then they see him at a Division III school, and they kind of, okay, well, I guess Division III's got some pretty good players in it. So breaking the stigma would be the first thing, I think, and then always, I think any coach at any level will tell you finding the right kid is always difficult, because you can never get to know a kid too well or well enough. And so always finding the right kids that fit your program and what your boss looks for as an assistant coach is always really important. And then for us also, financial aid sometimes plays a big factor in kids' decisions. With Division III obviously not being able to offer athletic scholarships, we depend a lot on kids' academics, kids' family situations and things. And so sometimes at a Division III level, you'll recruit a kid really hard and the kid will be ready to commit to you in December, but come February or March, he'll have to look at a different option because maybe his family just doesn't have the finances worked out the way to be able to come there. So that's a really hard thing.
Well, people don't understand how competitive it is at the Division III level. One of the things as far as a positive is the academics. I've always often said the 4 for 40 plan. Use the next 4 years of your college to prepare you for the next 40 years of your life. And when you really break it down, the number of people that play collegiate basketball, it doesn't matter whether it's D1, D2, D3, it doesn't really matter. There's only a very small fraction percentage, less than 2%, that are probably going to go play at the next level, play professionally for money. And I think one of the selling points is the academic side of Division III, because in most situations, the Division III schools, especially in this area, they're sort of like the Harvard and the Ivy League schools, as far as academic. What are the biggest selling points you have when you're working with a recruit as far as why they should come to Averett?
Well, academics is a big one too, and that's a thing we're really fortunate to have is a great academic plan. Like you said, 4 for 40. It's setting guys up not only with academics, but I've also been really fortunate to step into this position at Averett where Coach Duino, our head coach, and Coach Baker, our other assistant, who were both here before me, the culture they've created here, that also sets you up for the next 40 years of life. And you can ask any of our alumni, any of our current players, they can tell you specific things Coach Duino and this being a part of this program has taught them that's helped them in life, that's helped them in the job that they're currently working. So being a part of this, that's kind of a big selling point that I'm able to use. Also, that Coach Duino he's such a great coach. He's been at Averett for 6 years now, and he's won the league 3 times. So I can always tell kids, if you come here, you're going to be able to compete for a championship, because that's just the kind of coach and the kind of program that he's built.
And also at the Division III level, you have some great rivalries, and you also have some great fan support.
Definitely.
Talk about that.
The rivalries are always a lot of fun, especially, and I feel like that just comes with, we're really blessed in North Carolina, Virginia area, this region. We have some great Division III programs. The USA South is a great league, which we're in, and the ODAC is another great league. And fans sometimes a lot of schools are out usually where there's not a ton else to do. And so like Danville's a great town. There's not a ton going on around Danville. There's not a bunch of major league sports or anything. So we really get a lot of community support, and rivalries are bred through winning, I think. And like you said, there's just a lot of high level basketball, a lot of competition, and it's a really fun environment to go to a Division III game. I would really encourage anybody to just go out and check it out. Check out ODAC, check out the USA South, check out any league you can find, because there's some high-level players and a lot of high-level games. And there's really high-level coaches in this area as well.
High-level coaches, but there's also a high level of excitement with the fans. And if you really make a comparison, the atmosphere at, like you said, in the ODAC and the Division III schools, the atmosphere is crazy in the Division III level. And if you compare that, all you have to do is watch some games on ESPN Plus on the lower tier schools, whether it's, and I won't mention names, but you watch some of them and you're sitting there going, this is Division I basketball, nothing against them, but you look in the stands, there's no one there.
Right.
So I think, the other selling point too is the atmosphere, the crowds, the intensity, the excitement that you have at a Division III, because basically, like you said, there's nothing else going on. So the whole community basically comes out and supports the school. And of course, the gym sizes are smaller, so it creates that better atmosphere.
Right. And
now, Chris, you describe yourself as a scouting report on you as a player. All right. Now, tell us from a player's viewpoint, talk about Chris Sause, the coach.
As a coach, I think I'm still learning a lot. I'm learning every day, and I'm still kind of developing what kind of coach I am, being that this was my first year. But I think one thing my guys always know is I've always got their back no matter what. I'm always trying to push our guys as much as I can. There's a level of accountability that we have here at Averett that our coach has built, which is part of our culture. So it's part of my job to really hold our guys to the standard that Coach Duino has built for this program. And I'm always in the gym with guys. I'm trying to get them extra shots. And I feel like a big part of what I have to do as an assistant coach is instill confidence in our guys, whether that's getting in the gym with them and rebounding, helping them get extra shots, or just telling them during a game. Our coach has so many things to analyze during a game that he can't grab you on the sideline when you've missed a couple shots and tell you, hey, come on, let's keep playing. So that's part of what I have to do, and our other assistant coach has to do as well.
Well, the other thing that I would add to the equation, Chris Sause is one of the hardest working young coaches out there, because the one thing I can always say, when we have a Phenom event, you're there.
I appreciate that.
You're there, you're working, you're watching, you're observing. You're like a sponge. You're taking it all in. And I think that's, to me, 50% of the equation as far as being a successful coach is just having the work ethic. And you have the work ethic, Chris, is because I have watched you over the years when you came to our camp. And, I read your, scouting report, and I'm going to read it again. And I think this hits home because this is who you are as a person, as a player, and as a coach. And it says, you can't help but appreciate it when Chris Sause plays. He is an all-out, high-motor guy. He finished his season as the high school's all-time leading scorer. The wing will go out and produce game in, game out. And I think that's what I see. That evaluation of you back in 2015 as a player, the one thing you always did, you had a high motor, you gave it your all, and I see that in you as a coach. And I want to say, Chris, congratulations on, for someone just coming out of college and being able to be on a college staff 1 year out is pretty remarkable. And the way you approach yourself, you're very professional, you're humble, and the most important thing is you're going to be very successful in this business. And I just want to say thank you for coming on today, and thank you for your support over the years. And we want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of that. And I appreciate you having me on and the relationship we've been able to build through the Phenom platform. And I really look forward to whenever all this stuff gets over, coming back out to the events. I'm really excited.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.